But there you go. Hello. I thank you for joining. Let me introduce you to my colleague Javier Ortega. He came all the way up from Buenos Aires. I'd like to say just for me, but not so. But this should be a very interesting case study, if you will, because what's happening in Argentina with Vicentìn is not the first time this kind of thing happened, and probably not the last time this kind of thing happens, and it has very serious repercussions for communities, employees, and other stakeholders. Professor Ortega?
Thank you very much. First of all, I am very grateful to have the opportunity to discuss this kind of topic here in prestigious Society College. And well, I want to express some topics in order to would be easy understand what is an important issue for Argentinians, the destiny of Vicentìn company. Well, you know, all Latin American countries have the trouble called external constraint. What is external constraint? External constraint is we don't have dollars. Different to Americans, and for this reason, I hate you. You cannot print dollars in order to have a foreign currency to sustain our international trade. For this reason, the only thing that we have to sustain our international trend is to get enough dollar. And what is the most important source of dollar in Argentina? Is agricultural production. It's okay. And it's agricultural production. And well, if you look our numbers, you realize that 50% of all our exportation, 50% is the complex of grains and vegetable oils and flowers and derivative industrial product of grains. And for this reason, grains and export grains are the center of our economy. But what happened with this? Happened that all complex of agro export industrial in Argentina is transnationalized. Who is the owner? Who rules this complex in Argentina? The typical transnational company that everybody knows is Archer from America, Bunge, Europe, Cargill from America, Dreyfus, and nowadays Costco from China, because China increase, and appeared an actor in this issue called Glencore. Glencore is different company, and well, the history of collaboration with Mr. Shapiro, it was, what can I say, so curious, because I began to write to Mr. Shapiro because we have troubles with Argentina bonds, and you know, the legal suit of Argentinian bonds are decided here in New York, in the Southern District Court. Why? Because our federal government, when issue these bonds, immediately put the jurisdiction in New York, not in my country. Why? Because if we put the jurisdiction in my country, the cost of the bonds for us would be more expensive. For this reason, the creditors put pressure in order to fix our jurisdiction here in Southern District Court. But what happened? We suffered some legal claims for our bonds. You know the history of the vulture funds who try to take advantage about this topic. And for this reason, I began to write you, David, to say we don't know what happened in the Southern District Court, because the process of the federal government is to get an agreement with legal firm here in New York, and we Argentinians, that not happen about the legal processes. For this reason, my first intention is to share some information and begin to do research about this topic. After that, we are running this kind of work. The federal government of my country appointed me to be a legal advisor of Vicentìn intervention. What is Vicentìn? Vicentìn is an agro-trader company in my country. It's national, it's not transnational. And Vicentìn occupied the fourth place in exporting grains in Argentina. For this reason, it's so important. And what happened? Someday appeared Vicentìn, the owner of Vicentìn, and said to everybody, to Masaya, hey guys, we are in default. It was a big and strong surprise for us because nobody knows that Vicentìn have carried with them a crisis.
And this is in December of 2019.
Exactly. It's in December of 2019. And well, you know, it's a strategic company for all our economy. It's not a private company and anybody cares about it. No, no, no. It's central of our economy. And for this one, in the middle part of the 2020 year, 2020 year, the federal government decided to do an intervention to Vicentìn because so far it looks like that there is a very scam in the process of the board manage the company, some frauds, and the asset of Vicentìn was in danger. In order to preserve this asset, the federal government did an intervention and appointed me as legal advisor. I moved to Reconquista and Avellaneda, who was the headquarters of Vicentìn. It's near to Paraná River. Paraná is so important in this question. And I began to work in this issue more or less for 10 days, and immediately the judge in charge, because Vicentìn is under Chapter 11 process, is your call of creditor.
Or an analog, yes.
Exactly. The judge in charge of this process decided that no, federal government has not right to do an intervention to the private company, and put again the board, the original board, to manager to the company. But what happened? This board is under accusation to be a scammer, to do a fraud. But the judge does not care about this and did not care about this and put again in the manager of the company. And for this reason, I have to do a step behind on my work, but I continue to do a researching. And when I continue to do a researching and I continue working, one more time appeared the Southern District Court. But why?
Small world, right?
One more time. But what happened? Because the League of Lenders, the bank lenders, the League of Creditor Banks, asked a discovery to the Southern District Court in order to see what happened with Vicentìn assets. And I remember in that moment, I write again to you, please explain me what is the discovery.
If I may interject just for a second, and the reason I'm involved with Professor Ortega is because the financial disaster and collapse of Vicentìn was highly irregular. There were very suspicious transactions and transfers of financial interests. All of these necessitated somebody like a forensic accountant reviewing the transactions and the history of the company. And that's where we got together. If you wouldn't mind, if you would just explain what an intervention by the Argentinian government would look like. What is that supposed to accomplish?
Well, when we entered to the headquarters, I began to our works in order to protect the assets because we detect a wave of companies or shell companies that manipulate or manage the heritage of Vicentìn. Not only Vicentìn, SAIC is the name of the mother company. There are more of 20 shell companies who trade with the heritage of Vicentìn, with the assets of Vicentìn, and for this reason, the bankruptcy suit or the Chapter 11 suit, it was not able, this suit had not the capacity to protect the asset of Vicentìn. For this reason, the federal government decided to do a federal intervention to this company, but the judge in charge of the Chapter 11 said, no, 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 the federal government does not have a right. Okay, I put again the board in the manager of the company.
And we call that here debtor in possession. So the same people that were running the company before the financial disaster
Exactly.
are purportedly going to rehabilitate the company after the financial disaster.
Yes, the same guy who put in control the company, they just decided, no, there are the best guys in order to control or rule the company. And well, the process of Chapter 11 going on, and I remember I began to do a lot of consult to Professor Shapiro. Hey, what is discovery? Hey, what is Natixis Bank? Because in some folders, in legal folders, appear Natixis Bank. Ah, Natixis Bank is in Wall Street. Ah, okay. Some payments that Vicentìn received is with the intermediation of JP Morgan. Where is JP Morgan? Here in Wall Street. Ah, okay. Vicentìn received a legal advisor of a firm called Curtis. Where is the headquarters of Curtis legal firm? Here in Wall Street. And Wall Street appear all the time. As Pope Francis told, I live in the end of the world in Argentina. Anyway, in all legal folders appear Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street, because the transaction of money were made by banks located in Wall Street.
In US dollars, correct?
Exactly. And one more thing. Some days, Mr. Shapiro suggests me when I am very engaged in this issue, like legal advisor of the federal government. Hey, Javier, you have to look who is my rich, and you have to find a clue about this trouble.
Well, technically, who was Mark Rich?
Who was my rich because he passed away. And I began to do a research, who was my rich, and ups. This guy ran away of the law in the past when Rudolph Giuliani was a prosecutor of Southern District Court of New York, because he was under accusation to do a fraud or something like that, and he ran away to Switzerland. After that, he moved to Spain, and some days he received the forgive of the President of the United States.
Pardoned by President Clinton, correct?
Exactly, pardon. And I think the last day that he was in the government in office. And but this is the beginning of the company of Glencore. And I began to research who is Glencore, and I realized it's not an agriculture company, it's not an agriculture transnational, it's more focusing mining, richness, and Glencore had a very bad reputation because break the work law, break financial law, do a scam, and recently Glencore received a punishment fee, a criminal fee. He had to pay as a punishment 1,000, one house is like $1,000 million, more or less, as a punishment. And in which place Glencore paid this money? In Southern District Court one more time.
Yeah, so to be clear though, this activity, these failures of integrity and ethics involving Glencore, they occurred well after the departure from this world of Mark Rich, right?
Exactly. It looks like that Glencore is look after his tradition in order to do this kind of manipulate. And in a part of my working, I detected Renova. Renova is a company who is in the coast of the Paraná River, and it's the biggest company around the world to process grains. It's not one of the most big in Argentina or South Hemisphere. No. It's the biggest company processing grain by introduction, by industrial use around the world. And who is the owner of Renova? 50% is Vicentìn, and the other 50% was Viterra. Who is Viterra? Viterra is an agriculture company from Canada who was bought by Glencore 10 years ago. For this reason, 50-50 Renova is owned by Vicentìn and Glencore. And what is the target to Glencore? Catch all or Renova, of course, because if Glencore catch all 100% of Renova, Glencore immediately begin to be the first in agricultural exportation in Argentina, because Renova is the king. Renova is the clue to be the first. And for this reason, this process have a different aspect. We detected that 2 days before that Vicentìn declared to the public opinion, hey, we are in default.
Going back to December 2019.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly, thank you. 2 days before, 16% of Renova was sold to another company. What can I say with this? Vicentìn give heritage or give his share in Renova to another company. Who is the another company who buy 2 days before 16% of the share to Renova? This company is called Renasco. Well, where is Renasco? Renasco is a Netherlands company. It's a BP company. This kind of company, you can open this company, this kind of society in Netherlands in just a week of time, and the capital required is €1. With €1 and a week a time, you can open this kind of company.
Hell yeah, I can do that.
Yes, and furthermore, the director or the owners of this kind of company, BV, not necessarily have to live in Netherlands. I can open a company from Argentina, suppose if I have enough money, of course, in Netherlands, but I manage the company from Argentina. It's not necessary to stay in Netherlands. And well, Renasco was the buyer of the 16% of Renova.
So we're clear here. So what we have are individuals can control things as if they're from another country.
Yes.
So under the cover of corporate form, an Argentine citizen could establish a company in the Netherlands and claim to control the Argentine company as a Netherlands citizen. And of course, this affects legal rights and obligations, correct?
Yes.
Is this part of the problem we're having?
Yes, it's part of the problem, but when we do one more step, we realize who is the owner of this company, Renasco. And who is the owner? Glencore, one more time. And for this reason, we detect that all is an action with the purpose of Glencore catch 100% of shares of Renova company. And the process is suspected to be, I'm totally convinced that it is a way to be fraud, because the name of this kind of crime in our punishment codex in Argentina is emptying company. Is when you try to destroy your own company in order to catch the asset, pass to another legal firm, to another company, and commit fraud against your creditors.
Analogous to here, we have what we call corporate waste, or perhaps the pejorative meaning of asset stripping.
Yes, yes. And in this case, for example, Vicentìn took the decision in 2019 to pass the asset to another companies, and one of them is Glencore, in order to, I don't know what can issue an agreement Vicentìn has with Glencore, but to put Renova outside of the range of the creditors and give this privilege to Glencore, with the purpose of Glencore become the owner of Renova, and with the time, not with the time, now in the present, Glencore in Argentina is the #1 in vegetable oil export and flowers for soy.
Professor Ortega, if we could just revisit that 2 days in December 2019, when the 16% interest was transferred to Glencore from directly or indirectly Vicentìn. Do we know whether that was a fair transaction? What was the amount paid? Was it traceable? Do we know whether there was a good faith deal in place? What makes you suspect that?
I don't think
transaction?
so, because the first suspicion began for the date. 2 days before did it pass the heritage of 16% of share to Renasco. 2 days before that, Vicentìn declared, well, we don't have more money, we are entered in default. Is the suspected operation, first of all. And the second step, with the time, some accountant do an analysis of this operation and realize what? The money who receive Vicentìn for the buy of 60% of Renova, what happened with this money? Immediately, in 2-3 days, in total in a week, pass immediately this money to another company. And who is the owner of another company? Vicentìn. It's the same group of company divide this money, and Vicentìn catch not any dollar. All dollars is for another company of the group of Vicentìn.
So you're saying this accountant discovered, a forensic accountant, of course, discovered that the proceeds from the sale of the financial interest did not go, for example, to pay the creditors.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
They were transferred out for other beneficiaries.
Exactly, because when I stay in the headquarters of the company, I realized that 20 companies working in the same address, with the same informatic system, with the same accountant system, with the same employees, with the same board, but have 20 different hats, but the guys are the same all the time. For this reason, the strategy of Vicentìn is to pass his asset to another hands. He ruled this another hand, but in the paper, I know it's another company. The company who is in the process of bankruptcy is Vicentìn. The another company is in very good health, nothing happened, but the owner is the same. And the same happened with Renova. In the real, by true, Renova is a joint venture. Joint venture has a contract which not has legal personality. Renova is a joint venture, and furthermore, if you enter in the webpage to Renova, Renova proclaims himself like a joint venture. We are a joint venture, blah, 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 blah. But in the legal institution for Argentina, present himself company, a corporation. For this reason, we can detect this kind of fraud because the puppeteers of Renova,
The puppeteers?
puppeteers,
Okay.
puppeteers,
Somebody managing with a string.
exactly. The puppeteers of Renova was Glencore and is Vicentìn, but Vicentìn is resigning this position in favor of Glencore. And well, you know, the same day that Vicentìn sold 60% of Renova company to Renaisco company, this Netherlands company, the same day proposed an offer to modify the statute of Renova. And which is the content, or which is the word that contain this new statute for Renova? Well, first of all, put the share class A in the hands of Glencore in order to have more political rights, first of one. And second, gave more privilege to Renaisco and Viterra, the new owners of the Renova, you know. And furthermore, it's very funny because after that, in Renova, take place a meeting in order to approve this statute. And well, when you see the legal representative with the person, the physical person who represents Renova is, I don't know, try to not engage the name, for the reason I put a fantasy name, Pedro. Pedro is the legal representative of Renaisco. And Pedro, in the same act, in the same ceremony, is the legal representative of Viterra. And Pedro, at the same time, was part of the board of Renova. And Pedro works in the legal field who represents the legal interests of Glencore. Or it's the same guy with 4 different hats, doing the modified to statute to give privilege to Glencore in order to Glencore can manipulate or can manage 100% of Renova company. And well,
Yeah, Professor Ortega, if I may, just because we've heard a lot of different companies' names, and your point is very clear. However, in your investigation, did you determine whether there were any additional parties in the mix here? Because it seems as if you're talking about a core group that transferred to one another, where appropriate and beneficial, money and financial interests, to the detriment of Vicentìn. Has anybody else entered the play? Anybody else in the game now? Any independent legal entities that didn't exist beforehand, before the financial disaster.
Yes, Vicentìn has a complex web because some agriculture feel identified with Vicentìn company. And for example, when I did the federal intervention in the Vicentìn firm, is a lot of people in Argentina reject the intervention because say, well, it's a private property, the federal government have not right in order to take this company, because in that time it's too hard to understand that we are speaking about a fraud, not a legal company who has bad lucky and well, no, it's a fraud. And for this reason, some important part of Argentinian society try to nothing change, the federal government not take part in this issue, and some political parties, the most liberal political party in Argentina, liberal have another sense to United States. For example, for us, liberal party as conservative party. Conservative is liberal. Well, some conservative parties in Argentina try to avoid that federal government take place in this issue. And furthermore, I have to be true with you. Part of our bureaucracy of the state don't like that the federal government take part in this issue. For this is a very complex issue to take part because a lot of social force is against to this, and another banks, for example, you know, I will tell with the name because I have no choice. Rabobank is a Netherlands bank who is very engaged in this topic, and in the first moment I began to ask you about what happened when International Financial Corporation, you explained what International Financial Corporation is a part of World Bank, and well, the World Bank is one of the most bigger creditors of Vicentìn, but after that I realized that the management of the situation is not performed or is not done by International Financial Corporation. It's Rabobank who, what can I say, manipulate the situation and tell to the International Financial Corporation what have they do. The Rabobank is like a mind of this operation, and Rabobank now have private negotiation with the Vicentìn, with the rest of Vicentìn, in order to approve the Chapter 11 process. But if this proposal of agreement that Vicentìn is doing during these days, if the justice say okay with this proposal of agreement, would be a disaster of the most creditors, of the majority of creditors.
So what if you explain again to those who might say to you, well, geez, Vicentin's owners, sure, they ran the company into the ground. Yeah. Nobody saw it coming, but it's their property. They can give assets to whomever they choose. Why is that a bad thing? How did that affect Argentina? How did that affect you getting involved in the matter?
Yes, the effect because as I told you, you know, 50% of Argentinian exportation are agricultural exportation. Is grains, is flour, is vegetable oils. For this reason, we have is a structural trouble that Argentina have. Argentina does not have enough dollars to sustain his development, because when economy of our country began to be more bigger and more bigger, you need capital goods.
So if the US dollars as capital are not returned to Argentina.
Exactly.
Per usual, or before December 2019, then the Argentine government would, in a sense, not have the funds to pay back creditors and detrimentally impact the Argentine residents. Would that be correct?
Yes, it's correct. It's correct because federal government spoke well. Vicentìn company is a very important asset because it's engaged in the agriculture exportation. If Vicentìn was destroyed, we had troubles with the workers. About 2,000 workers lost their jobs, first of all, and second, all what can I say? All foreign commerce, all commerce of exportation, of grain exportation will be in international account because Vicentìn was a national company. And you know, Glencore is a transnational company who pretend to take over Vicentìn. But I want to share an example of this. You know, Glencore paid in the Southern District of New York a punishment fee about $1,000 million. If Glencore, I do building a hypothesis, if Glencore appeal in Argentina pay $1,000 million for Vicentìn, is more or less the value of the company. The same of the fee is the value of the company. Nothing can do reject of this because, well, they are by the company. It's not big deal. I don't like Glencore, but they have enough money to put and buy the company. But this not happen. Glencore is trying to catch all Vicentìn without $1. Just manipulate this legal process, and what is the important issue for us as a country? The ask is not that this company avoid the law in order to do a scam. No, they use the law in favor of them. This kind of manipulation, it would be not possible if we don't have a Chapter 11, and they use a Chapter 11 as a resort to catch all the company. It's not avoid the Chapter 11 regulation. Use the Chapter 11 regulation in order to catch all the company. And this is the important issue we have to discuss in this case. Try to public institution to Argentina, protect the people, not injure the people. And now, so far, they are injuring the people with this kind of manipulation.
So where does the matter stand today? Vicentìn has been involved in the courts in what we call insolvency proceedings here.
Yes.
What's happening now?
It's a big paradox. It's too hard to explain because we have two courts in this issue. The courts of Rosario City, criminal courts, and the courts of Reconquista City is civil and commercial courts, different courts. Both of them are in the Santa Fe province. Santa Fe province is a very rich in agriculture. In Argentina, it's like your Middle West, more or less. It's like Illinois, to say an example. And what happened? By the time that the criminal courts in Rosario, the board is a scammer, this kind of process is not going on because we detect a lot of kind of frauds. We have to stop this process because these guys are suspected to be a criminal and we have the proof, and most of them are under process. By the time that this happened in Rosario, in another city, Reconquista, the trial or the court say, everything is okay. This guy can be in control of the company, and now we are in the stage that the owner of the company offer a proposal of payment to the creditors. And well, you know, the judge have to approve this proposal if this proposal, of course, follow the law. They are not be able to approve this proposal breaking the law. I am totally convinced, we are totally convinced that this proposal breaking the law, because break the law of some principle of the law of par condicio creditorum is all creditors are equal or have the same rights, or pari passu,
Yes.
You know. But the judge in charge doesn't not care about this and continues going on. For this reason, the Supreme Court, not the Federal Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of Province of Santa Fe, asked the folder, please give me the experience, give me the folder, because I have to know what happened here. Because one court say everything is bad, and another court say everything is okay. And I have to define the situation because it could be a law scandal. And this is the term now.
So now it's with a Supreme Provincial Court
Exactly.
to reconcile the criminal and civil courts.
Exactly.
Right? And when is the next proceeding to occur? When can we get some closure? Maybe that's too optimistic a term, but what do we expect to happen in the next month, 2 months?
It's a very piercing question because I cannot do a forecast because American courts have an institution, it's a right certiorari, we don't have this institute, this legal process. If the court proceed, I am speaking about Santa Fe Court, if the Santa Fe Court give or take this issue like a right certiorari control, they follow the law of the process, they have take for granted, stop the process. No, these guys are the scammers. You cannot continue with this kind of fraud, or the creditors will be injured if this process continues. Stop. But if the court do an interpretation of the law, like they are right, just the law, not the spirit of the law, not equity, just not the spirit of the law, it's possible to say, okay, everything is okay, let's see what happens in the future, but so far so good. Well, the folder came back again of the civil judge in Reconquista and go ahead. And it will be in trouble because this situation could consolidate the appropriation by Glencore of Renova and another asset who is valuable, and the asset of Vicentìn, who belong to Vicentìn, that they are not variables, they have not have value. This remain isolated, of course, and well, the victim will be the worker.
So let me just see if we can readdress some things and clarify a couple of matters. Have we had any instances of convictions of fraud?
Yes.
Who has been convicted of fraud related to this matter?
It's convicted fraud. Everybody's in free, but it's conditional free.
Oh, no, I mean, have any of these individuals involved
Yes.
in these financial transactions
Yes.
that you have described as fraudulent actually faced the consequences of a criminal court?
Yes.
What happened there?
Well, we have two steps in our criminal process. The first step is the research. And the second step, where the prosecutor said, okay, I have enough data, propose to another court, okay, you have to begin to discussion in the, what can I say, in an oral process, in order to see who is guilty or who is not guilty. It's the court is another process like the American process in this case, but the first step is just a research, is to looking for paper, looking for data, looking for proof, and well, we are in this stage now. The prosecution is doing a research, and maybe in the final of this year or next year, the prosecutor says, okay, I collected a lot of proof. We have to pass to the another step. Is the judge is the trial.
Yeah, I bring that up, Professor Ortega, as I'm sure you recognize, to make it relevant to this country here. There were many in this country that complained of fraudulent behavior by the banks arising from the 2007-2008 great financial crisis, or the recession of that period. And people were clamoring for investigations, fact finding, research, and nothing really came of it, but people spoke of it as fraudulent criminal behavior, yet other parts of the government treated it as nothing to see here, let's move on. So officially, it became nothing to see here, let's move on. So in a sense, your matters are in that stage right now. In other words, you can't point to convictions of 6 people and say, who've gone under oath and said, oh, yeah, I did it. I transferred money to so-and-so's account without receiving anything in return. You're not there yet, correct?
Yes, we have material, we have suspicion, we have the record of the transaction, but of course, the blamed people or the people who is under accusation reject this, is it's false, we have a bad luck, the bankruptcy of our company is not because we did fraudulent manipulation, is because we have bad luck, yeah, blah, 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 something like that. Yeah. We are collecting the fraud, but you touch a very important issue. So what is the attitude of government? What can I say? In Argentina, from the 70s to now, we have a system, not writing system or not writing agreement, is the concept of commodities. Is one author called this concept of commodities. the concept of commodities, we create a liberate zone, a free zone in Paraná River. In Paraná River work the traders of exportation and the factory to produce flour and vegetable oil. And the federal government not touch this area, because if this area do exportation and this give me enough dollar to survive, I not touch this interest, because maybe this transnational company became angry, and what can I say? They deny to transfer dollar, they deny to begin continuous operation, they deny to do investment in the country, and for this reason, me as federal government, we be in troubles. For this, try not provoke.
A too big to fail doctrine, if you will, right?
Exactly.
Which was referred to in this country.
Yes, the Argentina federal government in any political science, not depends if it's rightists or leftists, no. All federal government try not bother this sector, because they afraid that if, what can I say, Cargill, Bunge, Archer became angry with this, you are put me troubles to me, okay, I will not give the dollar you need in order to continue your work. And for this reason, the decision of the federal government, of decision of the justice, and decision of the public institution is not go with very will against this sector, and this is a trouble.
Yeah, in this country, in the United States, we have the public prosecutor decides whether to bring a criminal charge.
Yeah.
In Argentina, how does it work? Does the judge lead the investigation, or is it done by a public prosecutor's office,
No,
like here in the States?
we have an accusative process now.
Okay.
The prosecutor did the research, and the judge just control constitutional guarantees in order to protect the people who is under accusation.
Like here.
Yes. Judge not take part in the research. Just see that all guarantees are respected by the prosecutor. And when they finish this period of time, this research, the second step is what? To elevate the folder in order to do a trial, oral trial, speaker trial, in order to determine if the blamed people or people under accusation is guilty or not guilty.
I'm going to ask you this question because it's the toughest question I can think of. Is it possible you're mistaken in all of this and there isn't fraudulent conduct?
From my personal point of view, no, because there is a lot of proof in the criminal folder and in the civil folder too. You have to see, you see the transfer, the record of transfer. You can see the result that reach for the discovery process here in Southern Court and say, no, it is scam. It's no way, it's not possibility that you are wrong. This is a scam. But the trouble is that the judge, I am speaking about the civil judge and commercial judge, have not taken decision to go with will against this. And you know, in my country, I don't know what happened in the United States, but in my country, commercial judge and civil judge are very protected, pro-corporation, and for example, if I show the event that the same guy represent at the same time 4 different companies in the same ceremony, maybe the judge can tell me, the civil judge can tell me, I don't care, because it's legal representing, you have 4 different companies, but look at this, it's a manipulation. You abuse of the legal form, I don't care, all is in rule. It's so possible that a civil judge can tell you something like this.
Yes, you're describing a very business-friendly judiciary.
Yeah, that is friendly. This is the expression. It's the correct expression, business friendly.
Yeah. So what's left for you to do? Other than persuasion, do you have more investigation, more research to do regarding Vicentìn?
Well, now, because what can I say? You know, Vicentìn is an open process. We don't know the destiny of this process. For this, it took a lot of my time to do a research, the most time to do a research. And day by day, we have some new notice, some new news, some new event. And after, hey, you have to see this and you have to see another. I don't know that the federal court take part in this. So far, it's not taking part, but it's possible in the future taking part because we have an issue to conflict about conflict between different trials, criminal trials and civil trials, and well, if this situation going worse, and maybe the federal court have take part in this, and well, it's another chapter to this issue.
Yeah, and this, of course, led me to revise one of my courses. And we brought in the Vicentìn matter as a case study potentially involving many different areas of investigative accounting.
Yes.
Everything from documentation of transactions,
Yes.
business purpose, alter egos, fair consideration, and these are interesting, especially now, because we don't have an answer. And that's one of the reasons I've enjoyed my collaboration with you over these past years, is because we're watching it unfold in real time.
Yes.
And we both recognize that there is a risk that nothing happens. We've seen it in this country, and it wouldn't be the first time it's happened in another country. And I'm wondering, do you feel any regret or concern about your career or your ambitions in Argentina? Is this politically unpopular for you to do, to be a legal investigator for this matter? A matter that seems to be ignored, for lack of a better word, by the civil end.
Yes. This is one of the trouble that we have. I think is in most countries happen the same. Like Walter Benjamin of the School of Frankfurt said, in some occasion, capitalism can be a religion. And the truth of capitalism is like have the same value of the Bible, the Holy Bible. And for this reason, when we began to discuss this topic, and A is fraud, most people say, no, it's the rule of capitalism. You have no right to touch the rule of capitalism. And well, everything is okay. It's private property. You cannot have, but no, I am working this as defense to private property. I try to avoid the scam, but it's a very hard task to try to share this kind of knowledge, to try to convince people that everybody have to follow the rule. And for this reason, well, we can do an advertising on this topic. We wrote a book in our collaboration, and it's in the press process. And this book speaks about this topic, how capitalists engage with this kind of legal rules in order to, in some occasion, create a parasitarian system in order to take, profit without production.
Yeah, and perhaps a simple example to illustrate the difficulties of worshiping private profit would be to consider what would happen if a private company bought up all the water. And then if there were a drought, and that private company could theoretically charge whatever it wanted, and it may be able to make more money selling lots of bottles of water to a rich person than subsidizing on its own account the distribution of bottles of water for the benefit of the general welfare. So yeah, I understand your point about religion, and this made a great exercise. In writing the book, we discovered many things about the legal system, the financial system, how they're intertwined, and yet how they're not without bias and specific value. There is no neutrality, generally.
Yes.
The laws, financial systems, they all have their own biases. And it's important that we talk about them and that they're upfront. And that was, in a sense, the purpose of this. I was going to open this up. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything, I apologize for this lecture type presentation, but if anybody has anything they want to bring up, or please don't hesitate to do so.
My friend from Argentina can do the question in Spanish, and it will be better.
Yeah, actually, your choice. You have a choice of 2 languages. We don't usually do that.
No, looks like we are very clear because there is no question. There are
Yeah,
no question.
great. Well, do we have anything we want to add, or should we thank our guests and bid them adieu?
Yes, I feel very grateful with John James and the people who listen to this conference, this conversation. And we know we try with Mr. Shapiro, Professor Shapiro, to continue working this topic. I think our book could be a tool in order to attack or put a face to this challenge, to analyze this kind of trouble from another point of view, not only the law or not only economy. It's try to combine economy and law and try to put a challenge, to put face to this challenge and what happened with production and what happened with the scam and what happened with the companies make money without produce nothing. Some companies produce nothing, but at the same time make money. And
Yes, that's where I find it particularly enjoyable from my perspective in the forensic accounting field. That we talk about a lot of things in accounting, unrealized profits and gains and transactions and so forth. But often we don't look at what is the purpose of the transaction. You know, are the transactions bringing in good things?
yes,
Is it worthwhile to do these things, or are we just making a lot of money, right?
yes,
So these are interesting, and the overarching point is we got to call it what it is, right? And anyway, a special thank you to Patrice and Denise for being here. Thank you much. And with that, I don't know, are we ready to lock you guys off?
okay,
All
well,
right. Thank you all, and good day.
good day.